Have you ever noticed that some people describe you as strong? I know I have. I know my mom has. She says this all the time. I hate it when people tell me I'm strong because inside, sometimes we feel completely exhausted. Maybe it's because we have become the one that everyone feels like in the whole wide world depends upon. We're the problem solver. We're the caregiver. We're the responsible one. We're the woman who has all the answers and we always figure it out. We are dependable and we are responsible. And from the outside, gosh, doesn't that look so admirable? But what if, just what if, being the strong one all the time is costing you more than you might have realized? Today, I want to explore what happens when we take this strength and staying strong and it becomes survival. And when that survival quietly becomes our normal way of living, gosh, what would that be like to think, how could I possibly live from a state where I'm not just surviving? Because strength is not the problem. Survival mode is. That's the problem. And just to be clear, strength is beautiful, resilience, beautiful, and responsibility, also beautiful. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with any of those things. The problem is when strength becomes our only way of functioning and it turns into this survival mechanism. Many women, myself included, live through seasons that require extraordinary strength, especially the more seasons that we have gone through, the older that we become. We go through all these different seasons, raising children, caring for aging parents. We have that sandwich generation where we're kind of in between. We have or may have financial hardships. Maybe our relationships are difficult, our marriages are difficult. We might be estranged from family members. Maybe we have illness, chronic illness, or something acute, accidents, things like that. Maybe it's something beautiful like ministry. I love ministry. But what if that and staying strong and for that kind of becomes a way of surviving? Or what if we just survive to get through it? And leadership. What if leadership is the thing that is beautiful and wonderful? But what if all these things, individually may not be that bad, but what if they all start to add up and then we say strong for this and strong for that and strong for this and strong for that? And then all of a sudden, all of those seasons and all of these things that have accumulated over time, they shape us. And eventually these survival patterns become so familiar that they simply feel normal. We don't know any different because we so adapted. That's one of the things that being resilient is a strong characteristic, but it also kind of slides us into that survival mode. So we just stop asking, how am I doing? How am I really doing? And we just keep plodding along. We just keep going, just keep swimming. Like the movie says, just keep swimming. We just keep swimming. But the other thing is that survival patterns, they often hide in plain sight. It doesn't always look dramatic, not like, surviving on a desert island, those TV shows. Sometimes it looks simply like always being productive, taking responsibility for everything and everyone, even before they even ask. We take responsibility. What if it turns into solving everybody else's problems, even if they ask for help or they didn't ask for help? How about, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. What if saying I'm fine becomes a hidden thing that we hear ourselves saying? What if we never ask for help or rarely ask for help because I do it myself, mommy. That was my thing. I said that to my mom at 4 years old. And boy, have I said that repeatedly over the next 5 decades after that. How about we feel guilty for resting? Guilty as charged. I have done that. I have felt guilty for resting. And what if we believe, oh boy, what if we believe that no one else can do it as well as us? Again, guilty as charged. From a functional medicine standpoint, when we look at the body, our nervous system is made amazingly well. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. It knows how to adapt to chronic stress. But over time, it eventually starts to take its toll. Cortisol rises, and if it stays consistently rising all the time, then our adrenal glands kind of like, oof, they really, they really get tired. And eventually, we have this adaptive phase before we have the exhaustion phase. There's the adaptive phase, and eventually hypervigilance becomes normal, and our body, the output signals change, and constant output becomes our baseline, even from a chemical physical standpoint inside of our body, and that takes its toll. Then mentally and emotionally, staying strong and being in this survival mode, it's not without a price. Eventually we just stop recognizing how tired we are. I remember going through this one season of my life where it was just one thing after the other, and I always had a reason. It wasn't like I was trying to make an excuse. I could always explain it away. I could always say, well, it's because of this. Oh, it's because of that. It's because of this. And it's because of that. And eventually I realized, no, something is wrong. Something is definitely wrong, because I took the time to like finally stop and say, there's something not right here. It can't be this because that's done. It can't be this because that season's over. It has to be something different. And even spiritually, we may start believing that our worth is connected to how much we carry. Because boy, doesn't that sound so spiritual? Talk about like, I don't want to, be dramatic, but some of us, like being a martyr, like it's a badge that we wear, and we carry it around, and we say, "Gosh, look at me! Look how much I've done, and look how much I can do, and look how much I carry." And don't we super spiritualize it sometimes? But what survival protects can also limit. We have learned to survive for really, really good reasons. Our survival patterns, we learned those because they protected us. They helped us to endure in difficult times and to get through seasons that were a little more challenging. They helped us to care for others. Like I mentioned before, I used to be a single mom with 5 kids. Like it helped me to get through that. And nursing school, while I had my 5 children, one of which was a newborn, that was a time, boy, I'm telling you, it was not an easy season. And my strength helped me to get through it, but it taught me how to survive. And that wasn't necessarily something that I needed to carry on into every season of my life. But not every survival strategy belongs in every season. Like I said, I had these things that I learned from the season that I was in school and being a single parent, and I didn't necessarily need to carry them forward, but I did because it was a learned behavior, and I kept carrying them forward into the next and the next and the next season until I would say in the last couple of years, I finally learned I don't have to just hang on by my fingernails. Sometimes what once protected us, now it prevents us from receiving, from trusting others, trusting ourselves. We talked about that last week. From resting. Resting used to be like I think rest used to be a 4-letter word in my dictionary. Sometimes survival prevents us from experiencing joy. I did a podcast a while ago or a teaching series on social media a while ago on returning to joy, because it was something that I had, because of the survival that I had gone through and all the different things. I needed to go, how can I return to joy? I need to experience joy. The joy of the Lord is our strength, and we need to return to that. And the most important thing is it prevents us from living in a perfect peace, the peace that passes all understanding. There comes a point where surviving is no longer enough. And God simply, He's He's a, He's not asking us to simply survive. In fact, I think He's asking us to move from just surviving into thriving, into flourishing, that well-watered garden, like a tree planted by the waters, like Psalm 1 talks about, giving fruit in its season. I think that's what God wants us to be, that well-watered garden where we are flourishing in every season because we have learned how to rest in Him and how to draw our strength, not just from ourselves, although He places that in us and He gives us these capabilities and abilities, but to rest in Him and to draw from Him and to get what we need from Him, and not just hang on by the seat of our pants. So, what would be some practical examples of what we might hear ourselves saying or doing if we're just surviving? Well, one of the things that I know I've said and thought and said is, if I don't do it, nobody will. I always feeling like we're responsible for everyone else's emotions, and always anticipating problems before they happen. That may seem like, oh, I have a plan and I can anticipate. And when you're working in the ICU and the emergency department like I did, that's great. You know what to do in case of an emergency, but we don't live our daily lives in a state of emergency. We may find that it's difficult receiving help. It's hard to ask for help. I can attest to that. I had been one who was reluctant to ask for help. We may feel anxious when we're not being productive. We're sitting there resting, and the whole time our mind is just going, going, going. It never stops. It's always thinking about all the things that we have to do and all the things that we're not doing because we're sitting here resting. Huh. And it feels uncomfortable then when somebody else asks if we need help, asks, if they can take the lead on something. It's uncomfortable to give up that sense of control that we might have, and the identity that we get from being so responsible and so strong. And sadly, I think the thing that's really hard is that often we measure our value based on how much we accomplish, not just seeing our worth and our value because of who we are and the qualities and the characteristics that we have that are just beautiful and lovely, that are separate and have nothing to do with the things that we actually put our hand to and the work and the accomplishments that we do. So, I think I just want to encourage you that we don't have to stop being strong. We don't have to become somebody different. We just have to simply learn that we don't have to carry everything ourselves anymore. Our worth has never, ever been measured by our capacity to take on more and to hold it all together. That is not where our worth and our value is. Strength can look so much different. Strength can look like asking for help, resting, truly resting, saying no sometimes, saying yes other times, trusting ourselves and letting go. Like, I often do a visualization where I just picture myself with open palms, and whatever my situation is, and it's sitting here in my palms, and I just want to hold on to it. I often just open my palms and just say, I surrender. You can have it. You can have it all, God. You can have it all. You can have the reins. I don't need to hold on tight. I don't need to control the outcome. And I certainly don't need to be the one to make it happen. Because I think that this season that God is inviting you into is a season where we exchange survival with alignment. So here's some questions I think you could take with you as you're moving through your day and week. Where have I become the strong one? Quote, quote, the strong one. What responsibilities am I carrying right now that were never meant for me to carry? They were never mine. What patterns that used to protect me, they once protected me, now may no longer serve me? And what has been the cost of being strong? What has being strong actually cost me? If I had to open my wallet and give away some dollars, some green stuff every time I was strong and I didn't need to be, or was strong in different ways than I needed to be, and I was just surviving, would my wallet be empty or would it be full? What does it cost me? How would my life look like if I believed that I didn't have to earn my worth by carrying everything all by myself? And lastly, and I think probably most importantly, where might God be inviting me into greater freedom? Isn't that what we want? Whom the sun sets free is free indeed. Isn't that what we want? We want freedom. Where is God inviting you into a greater freedom? So if today's conversation resonated with you, then I would invite you to download my free alignment check. This is a simple reflection tool that I've created, and it helps you to identify areas where you might be living in a place of survival or from survival instead of from a place of alignment. You'll find the link below. So here's some things to take with you, some closing thoughts. Being strong, it's not your problem. It's beautiful. Being strong is a beautiful thing. Living as though you must always be strong might be the problem. You were created for so much more than constant survival. You were created for peace, for rhythm, for connection, for wholeness, and for alignment. This week, simply notice. Just take a minute and notice. Last week, we talked about listening. Take a moment and just listen and notice. Be curious about your life. Notice where you've been carrying more than you were ever meant to carry. And ask yourself, what would it look like for me to begin to put some things down? I hope this has blessed you, and I will see you next week.